Okay, let's go.
Recording in progress.
Good morning. Welcome to the September 21st, 2023 meeting of the Palo Alto Architecture Review Board. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Bolte,
Present.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Present.
Board Member Chen,
Present.
Board Member Hirsch.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any member of the public who wishes to address the board on any item not on our agenda today?
No.
Thank you. Next item is agenda changes, additions, and deletions. Staff, Claire, do we have anything?
None today.
Thank you. Next item is city official reports. Claire?
Good morning, Senior Planner Claire Raybould. Tentative future agenda, we're looking at a couple of items on October 5th, 420 Acacia Avenue. It's a 16-unit townhome development using a density bonus, and then 180 El Camino Real Stanford Shopping Center, some modifications to the facade of Restoration Hardware. I'm hoping to also do a brief informational report on just housing regulations. One or two of the board members had asked for just kind of a brief summary of that, and I thought we can do that at the start of the meeting before we start launching into some state density bonus projects that are coming up, including the 420 Acacia project. So hoping to do that on October 5th as well. On October 19th, we'll have an NVCAP study session. That's actually going to be looking at the Chapter 7 implementation, as well as the draft zoning regulations that go along with that are going to be proposed to the Planning Commission and Council. And then we'll also have a preliminary review for 616 Ramona, just across from City Hall. There's a proposed project for redevelopment with transferred development rights for that project. And there have not been any new projects that have been added. We got the 616 Ramona was the last one that was added into the last report. As we start getting into the holidays, maybe start thinking about if, and let me know if you plan to be absent for anything over the holidays or something. So just a reminder so that we can make sure we have a quorum. And hold on one second. And I'll make some announcements at the end of the meeting after our action items. So,
Claire, could you bring us up to speed on any changes on the project at 3150 El Camino Real? That's one that our subcommittees of Rosenberg and Hirsch reported out twice on the development process of that. Where do we stand with that right now? Do you know just what the status of that project is?
My understanding of the status is that they have submitted a formal application, and we have done a single round of review of that, and we are still waiting on revised plans to come in related to that.
So there's no formal plans that have been resubmitted since you looked at them the first time?
Right, correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, ready to move on then. Next item on our agenda is action items. The first one is 180 El Camino Real, recommendation on an applicant's request for a major architecture review of a new storefront facade, including new glazing and signage within space 820B, Building 5, for our house at the Stanford Shopping Center. Okay, can we have a staff report on that, please?
Thank you, Chair. Board members, Tamara Harrison, Michael Baker International, presenting as contract planner for staff. And I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, again, this action item is at 180 El Camino Real at the Stanford Shopping Center for our house.
Excuse me, Tamara, could I ask you to pause for 1 second? I'd like to do disclosures within the board. Does anyone have anything disclosed
Absolutely.
in this project? Board Member Chen?
I visited the site recently.
Okay, I also visited the site just the other day.
I have not visited the site, but I sat in on the ad hoc board previously.
Okay, and Board Member Hirsch?
Same thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Please continue.
Thank you. So as a refresher, this project is located in Building V at the Stanford Shopping Center, and it's formerly the American Girl doll store. The project is subject to the master tenant facade and sign program for the Stanford Shopping Center. And as you know, the location of this space exterior facing to the shopping center, it requires a public hearing and the ARB review. Again, the applicant is seeking to change the facade of the building for a new R House tenant, and the tenant location is located off of the Sand Hill entrance into the shopping center. The project originally appeared before the ARB for discussion on June 15th of this year. At that meeting, there were 4 items that were referred to an ad hoc committee for further discussion. Those items being the grout color for the aged Belgian brick, the color, material, and details for the soffits, potential bike parking locations, and updated renderings for consistency with the elevations. The project came before the ARB subcommittee on August 3rd of this year. And at that time, all of the 4 items were addressed adequately with the exception of the aged Belgian brick and the grout color. And the reason for that is that the applicant did make a change in the proposed materials and the proposed elevations. And so they removed the proposed brick completely from the elevation and added a terracotta baguette system. And so you can see an illustration of the previous brick that was proposed as well as the terracotta in this slide here. So this slide here shows you the previous colors, materials that were proposed. So again, you have the brick, you have the steel rain screens, the Equitone panels, and then the new colors and materials will again have Equitone panels in a different color. You have the terracotta baguette system. The steel rain screen was also maintained. However, the Equitone panel, I should mention, was changed to a lighter color. Before it was a darker tone, and now it's more of a beige tone. And then also the natural ipe wood was also introduced to the facades. It's currently being used on the soffits. And it was introduced into the actual facade elevation as well. And then just for comparison, I just kind of did a side-by-side of the previous design and then the proposed design for our house. And for considerations for the review, the ARB findings were taken into consideration, as well as, again, the master facade and sign program for the center. And so with that, staff recommends that the ARB take the following action and recommend approval of the proposed project facade changes to the Director of Planning and Development Services based on the findings and subject to staff's conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Harrison. Out of ordinary, but perhaps appropriate for this case, before we go to an applicant presentation, I'd like to ask our subcommittee to report back to us on their review of this project as well. That was, I believe, Board Members Rosenberg and Board Member Thompson, who's not here. So if you don't mind, Board Member Rosenberg, if you could just briefly summarize for us what you saw and why this came back to us. I'm bringing this up to my colleagues because our review needs to be focused on things that were under the purview of the ad hoc committee. Although we can look at anything we like, of course, but it's reasonable to focus on those issues. So what were they, please?
Oh, thank you, Peter. The image on the screen is actually a perfect example of why it was just a little bit, it felt a little bit beyond the scope of what we had originally approved. And so when we were reviewing everything, the applicant had a really comprehensive, clear response to all of our items. But when we looked at the aged brick versus the terracotta baguette system, it just felt a little bit more dramatically different than we felt comfortable approving without our fellow board members. So we allowed the applicant to have the option of either sticking with the aged brick and proceeding forward with an approval, or they could bring it back to us with the full board with the terracotta baguette system. And they made the decision to come back with the terracotta baguette system. So that was pretty much the extent of it.
Thank you. Okay, so to the applicant, if you'd like, you have an opportunity to make a presentation. You will have 10 minutes. If you could please state and spell your name for the record. You know the rules here, but.
Good morning, Chair, board members. Thank you again. Jason Smith, Land Shark Development, 122 North Harbor Boulevard, Fullerton, California.
That's Smith, S-M-I-T-H?
S-M-I-T-H, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, a pleasure to be back in front of you. Yes, there are some items that we couldn't quite, and I understand why the subcommittee or ad hoc did not want to review and potentially approve the material change. And so we did decide to come back in front of you today. With us today, we do have Nikki Edmondson with Our House, as well as Mark Lenz with Onyx Creative, which is up at the podium with me right now. He will be providing you with a presentation on the project and discussing the changes and why we made some of those changes.
Hello, I am Mark Lenz with Onyx Creative. Do I do the address as well?
You might want to.
If you
That
could-
is 25001 Emery Road.
If you could state and spell your name, please.
Oh,
This has to
and-
be transcribed. so
Okay,
it helps.
Mark, M-A-R-C, and Lenz, L-I-N-S.
Thank you.
And then we are located on 25001 Emery Road, Suite 400, Cleveland, Ohio, 44128. We'll share my screen. Yes. I can't do it through the,
Oh, to the panels link, excuse me.
yeah. Okay. As mentioned before, I'm here to present the facade revisions to the existing American Girl store at the Stanford Shopping Center. We are located at the northeast side of the site. And we are not revising the footprint of the building. We have a few existing condition photos showcasing the existing design. As mentioned before, this has been presented before, and we made a few revisions to the material palette. The main revision was to the terracotta baguette system. We felt that the terracotta aligned with Our House's design standards and strategies, as well as their pursuit of sustainability. The baguette system is made from recycled content, and that has been they use recycled and reclaimed content as their interior materials and within the products that they sell within the store. We show it in 2 earthen colors to highlight its from the earth qualities and its baked qualities. And those are both in a dark and lighter variation, and to show variation in the palette as it extends up the facade. We have also revised the Equitone color to be in that warm palette so that it would play, it would contrast and play with the terracotta, as they would be similar in tone, but the terracotta is more of a matte finish, and the Equitone is more of a matte finish, and the terracotta baguettes are a glossy finish. We also have added the natural ipe to the facade, and that was to pull the red tones of the Corten steel into a vertical application to bring the existing, or not, the soffit material onto the elevations to tie the design together. And then to contrast the Corten steel and the ipe, since the ipe is a natural product with a natural stain that has the reddish hues of the steel rain screen panels, but the steel rain screen panels have a natural patina that occurs over time. The remaining materials stayed the same. These elevations show the placement of those materials. As mentioned before, the facade has not changed, just the materials themselves. And included are the updated renderings showcasing how the ipe has taken that vertical line and pulls the color of the Corten steel across, and then the variation in the baguette system. I also would like to note at this time that there is no grout between these baguettes. They are mounted horizontally, and the mounting will be concealed. Behind the terracotta baguettes will be a metal panel system, and it'll be darker to show that it is a screened system. And then the update of the sections, the details. And if you look at detail 11, you'll notice how we're mounting the baguette system. I will zoom in. Where there will be gaps in between those individual baguettes, and there is the backup system for the metal panels. And then finally, the day rendered elevation. And that is the end of my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Why don't you wait there for a second? Let's ask questions next. Are there any questions of the applicant or staff? Who should go first, Board Member Chen?
Yeah, go for it. Go first.
I do have one quick question about the new material, the terracotta baguette. Is there like a maximum length of the product? How long it will goes to?
Yes, I believe it is 5 feet.
Okay, so on the elevations, on sheet A301, there is elevation dimension as 6'8.5" including the fins. So does it mean we will see like 2 pieces that join together? The terracotta. The sheet I'm looking at is A3.301. Oh, okay, you're also showing.
So we have someone else from my office that is more familiar with the terracotta, the baguette system. Is it okay if I have her speak?
Sure, yeah.
With us is Alyssa Arbogast, and she is on the call remotely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Alyssa, you said, if you could please spell your name for the record, and then we'd like to hear your response to the question.
Yes. Okay. So my name is Alyssa Arbogast. It's ALYSSA, and then ARBOGAST.
Thank you.
Yes. So the terracotta baguettes have a maximum length of 5 feet. Anywhere where that would be, we would have a vertical member to divide that up.
Yeah, could you please go to the southeast elevation? I believe it's the elevation down below because the dimension is over 6 foot. Yeah, that part.
6'8". So that also includes like the fins that you see, like the portals that we have. But that should probably have the vertical member in it as well, to make sure that we have the 5 foot on either side.
What's the vertical thing you mentioned about? What does it look like?
It's part of the fin system. It's like probably like 1 inch that goes straight up through it. And it would be the same color as what is behind the terracotta baguettes. So it would be like the same color as the ACM. It's just a black metal. And it would blend in with the portals that are framing the project.
So does it go continuously vertically, or it will stagger between the different?
It would be a continuous line going all the way up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Can I follow up on that? I don't understand. This continuous vertical line, is this at the edge augmenting the width of the fin to bring the terracotta panels to 5 feet? Or is this something that would be in the middle of this run of panels vertically and then not shown on the elevation?
This would run vertically through the terracotta baguettes.
So straight up the middle of this elevation we're looking at now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Any other questions of staff? Or go ahead, Board Member Rosenberg.
Sorry to follow up on that one more time. Would it be straight up the middle as the intention is it to divide it in the middle, or would the intention be to have a full 5 foot panel of terracotta baguettes and then sort of a smaller system to the side, right? Would you be cutting all of the panels or be using 5 feet and then like a small little, I know it's a detail, I'm just sort of curious.
So yes, if we are required to have that, we would split it right down the middle. That way this looks even on both sides.
Got it. Understood. Thank you. And then my last question is in regards to the Ipe. That can have some maintenance. If it's not taken care of properly, it'll weather to a gray. So is the stain really going to maintain its rich brown color? And is there going to be any maintenance that you guys foresee?
There will be maintenance. The Ipe product has been used on several Arhaus stores across the country, and they understand the maintenance requirements based off of geographical location, environment, and daylighting.
Great. Thank you very much.
Can I follow up on that again to Mr. Smith? You're with the shopping center. Do you have any kind of a maintenance requirement in your lease with them? This Ipe will need to be finished every 6 to 12 months. When it doesn't get finished, it looks terrible. Do you have requirements of your tenants to maintain the appearance of their designs?
All tenants are required to maintain their storefronts, and periodically on-site management tours the facilities and identifies any deficiencies on their storefront and notifies the tenants to properly maintain and or update their storefronts to comply.
And would you consider a failed or fading finish to be a requirement that it be maintained, or is that?
It is, and there's been multiple times it's been identified on site, and there's currently some deficiencies that they're working with tenants to repair.
Wonderful. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions of staff or applicant? Board Member Hirsch, anything?
One of the items, if we get off of the details of the materials, one of the items was bike parking. How is that being addressed?
Claire,
I'll have Tamara speak to that.
Yeah. So the bike parking discussion that took place at the subcommittee meeting was essentially that staff has been working with Simon Mall Management to get not only the bike parking, but also the vehicular parking numbers clear and straight. So at this time, Simon we continue to work on that spreadsheet. We have a iteration that's currently in that hopefully is our last iteration. And at this time, it looks like there are excess bike parking stalls that were installed by mall management earlier this year. And as we move through with these approvals, we're kind of chipping away at that overage number for bike parking, if you will. So with the Arhaus store, they are going to be required to install 6 bike parking, short-term bike parking as a result of this change. And so that 6 will be deducted from that overage that was already installed earlier this year. So short answer is that staff is still working with mall management on this bike parking And we hope to have that solidified probably within the next week or so.
So if I could just add to what Tamara was saying. So basically, we're looking at it as a more holistic approach in terms of like how they're coming up to speed with the bike numbers, and every time they make a change, we're looking at that. There are the bike spaces that are being added and where these are kind of allocated aren't immediately adjacent, but that's because there are existing bike spaces already in this area. I think that Jason might be able to speak a little bit to the number of bike spaces that already exist in the immediate area, if you could.
Correct. I can make a clarification on that if you'd like.
Let me check. Board Member Hirsch, do you want to further get
Just to
further
hear where-
clarification? Yes, please
Definitely.
go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Around Building V, which encompasses this project and the tenant next to it, there's a total of 32 bicycle parking spaces already existing, and with an additional four long-term cubes. With the expansion of the shopping center and building EE, and they're going to be putting in an additional, I believe it's 18 bicycle spots once that construction is completed. And again, currently there's we have a positive of bicycles, so we're chipping away at those numbers when we come up to public hearing. But again, Simon is working with staff to make sure that all those requirements are met, and we're going to identify exactly where all those bicycle spots are at.
Thank you.
Okay, you can sit down to the applicant. Let's move on then and open this hearing to public comment. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address us on this project?
I have not received any speaker cards or raised hands.
Okay, we'll close the meeting to public comment and bring it back to the board for a discussion. Board Member Rosenberg, why don't you start us off since you were on the subcommittee? What do you think?
Sure. Well, thank you guys again for your presentation tomorrow. Thank you for yours as well. We were pretty much in favor of this project previously, and really the only point of contention that seemed outstanding was really just to make sure that the entire board as a whole was unified in their approval of the full material scope. My personal opinion is I'm rather pleased with the improvements. I think that it's going to be quite lovely. I think that as much as I really liked that Belgian brick, I think that this is a very beautiful and a little bit more modern leaning design selection. And I think that it lightens and brightens the space quite a bit. And on that front corner facade where this building is located, I think that lightness and brightness will really be a benefit to this project. So well done.
Thank you. Who would like to address this next? Okay, Board Member Hirsch.
I'd like to ditto my fellow board members' comments here. I think it's a good change. I've had some reservations about the brick material as well. And I think this is a more consistent material. Colors are very beautiful, and the whole enhancement of the front is improved with these new materials. So I have no problem moving this one forward.
Thank you, Board Member Hirsch. Board Member Chen.
Thank you. And I think the introduction of the new material is a good improvements to this project. And I like the way you make the corner elements lighter. And I think I like the contrast you provided now. However, I'm a little bit concerned about the drawing line that you just mentioned. So without seeing the details, like where the lines are and how it really looks like, I'm not quite sure if we could just simply approve it, or I would be more comfortable to have a conditional approval in this case. And also, I just look at the floor plans again, and I saw the dimensions, the width between between the column, the fins, and also the glazing areas. I saw they're all different. So I'm wondering whether it is possible for you to just make the 6'8" width narrow to make sure that it fits in with the 5 feet maximum length. If you can consider that, maybe that is a better solution. I'm not sure, I don't want to design for you, but I would encourage you to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I share my colleague's comments. I think the design is an improvement and he's comfortably supported. I share board members Chen's concern about the baguette system. I think having a vertical seam is not acceptable. I think it's possible for us to condition this upon having a baguette system that does not have a vertical seam. Either make those fins slightly wider or find a different manufacturer with a longer baguette. But I suggest to my colleagues that we approve this conditional to there not being a vertical seam in that new system, and let staff verify the improvement of that.
Might I offer one additional possibility for how they deal with that baguette system?
Why don't you go ahead and make the motion?
Sure. No, I actually think that this is important beforehand, is that it's a possibility to just flip flop which material goes in which racing stripe, right? So I'd like to make a motion to approve this project with the condition that the final approval of where those baguettes are and whether or not there's a seam there is reviewed and approved by the staff. I don't think that it needs to come back to an ad hoc committee.
I think the question is that there is no vertical seam in the middle.
Fair enough. Okay, so we'll make a motion to approve this project with the condition that there is no vertical fin on that baguette system to be approved by staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion of the motion? If not, can we have a roll call vote, please?
So before we do a roll call, I don't know should we make sure that seems feasible? Or is that acceptable? Okay, great.
They've been nodding their heads. We've been watching this. I think it's a pretty clear standard for us to hold that we want that regardless of how easy it is. It just needs to be that way. So again, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Yes.
Chair Balte,
Yes,
motion carries 4-0.
thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, let's move on to our next item. This is a public hearing regarding 3600 Middlefield Road, recommendation on applicant's request for major architectural review to allow the deconstruction of the existing Palo Alto Fire Station number 4 and construction of a new 8,000 square foot fire station. The application also includes a variance request from the city's 50% shading canopy coverage in the parking lot. Before we get started, I'd like to ask if we have any disclosures. Board Member Chen.
Yes, I visited the site.
Okay, I disclose that I also have visited the site recently.
I have nothing to disclose.
Said so quietly, David, I didn't hear you.
Nothing.
Thank you. Okay, can we start with the staff report, please?
Good morning, board members. My name is Gary Sauls. I'm the planner who's been working on the Fire Station 4 replacement project. This is at 3600 Middlefield Road. Just to reacquaint you with the location of the site, this is located at the intersection of East Meadow Drive and Middlefield Road, adjacent to the Presbyterian Church and the Palo Alto Little League Clubhouse. To give another overview of the project, once again, the project is to replace an existing 2,900 square foot office fire station with a 1-story, 8,000 square foot LEED silver target fire station. One thing to note that has been a slight change from the previous approval also is that previously they had incorporated 12 parking stalls, and now there's only 9 parking stalls as a part of the application. 3 emergency vehicle loading bays, still the same, and emergency generator, again, still the same. The proposal will ultimately end up removing 12 trees and replace it on site as well as off site within the right of way on Middlefield Road, as well as onto the shared space of the substation along Middlefield Road. This project was previously heard by the ARB on August 3rd, and we'll be going into the comments that were received during that hearing on that date. So the first comment was that the board wanted the applicant to provide a comprehensive material board, which the applicant has here, and we'll be sure to bring it up to you in a second. But it is also included in the staff report, I believe is attachment G, which identifies all the materials that are being proposed within the building, provides the details of the colors that are being utilized, the names of the materials as well. The second comment the board provided was for the applicant to consider a different material than the stucco siding. After the applicant took that comment, reviewed it, they felt that the stucco material provided the greatest contrast between the other materials, the wood soffit and the glass elements of the building. They felt the stucco stood out better than other materials they had studied. So they've proposed to continue to utilize that as a part of this application. The third comment was from the ARB was to provide a greater connection and openness to the building facade. On the top image that you see here, this is the previous elevation that you'd seen at the August 3rd hearing, and the below image is the current design that's included in your packet. Primarily, the difference is that you can see this is along Middlefield Road. Primarily, the difference is that you can see where my mouse is moving around. In the previous design to the proposed design, they've expanded this window vestibule and vista into the cooking and the lobby room for the firefighters. They've also included a different type of fencing along this left-hand side. The next comment was to present a conceptual sign design, which you can see on sheet E1. Going back to the previous image here, you can see just visually there's a slight difference in the orientation of the lettering as well as the size of the number of the letter 4 for the fire station. And tentatively, the materials that they're proposing would be something that would be aluminum, which is very common for many signs that the city sees. And they've also identified potential font type and the thickness of the letters that they're going to be using. Another comment was that the applicant provide a roof construction detailing. On sheet E1, you can see on the elevation drawing, they also identified the slope of the roof, which you can see in this image here. My cursor is moving around. On sheets H1 and O2, you can see these details here. H1 in particular, you can see this section detail of the roof eave, and then you can see these blown up images on O2 of the roof detail itself, of the eave detail itself. The board had also commented to the applicant to provide additional clear story windows or skylights into the exercise room. Again, you can see the previous elevation on the top image, the proposed elevation on the bottom image, and you can see here the differences that they've wrapped along these clear story windows along this backside, as well as they've wrapped this corner with a ceramic tile rain screen system from the front of the building. So you can see that there's a bit more symmetry in the design of the front piece of this side along East Meadow Drive, this view shed looking at the building here, and what they've incorporated into the building in this portion as well. You can also see that the height of the building in this area has been raised as well. That's again to provide some additional volume within that space and comfortability for the firefighters. As was noted by the chair in the project description, the applicant has requested a variance to the city's 50% shading requirements. This was something that Public Works team had communicated to the city they wouldn't be able to achieve after that August 3rd ARB hearing. And so they had identified that they would need to request a variance in order to continue processing this application. The city has included the variance findings in the staff report, and staff believe that with the uniqueness of this site, its facilities, that it's provided the services that it is providing to the city and the critical functions they provide, as well as other sort of limitations related to the emergency system responsibilities and the overhead power lines that stretch over the property, that staff believe that we can make the findings to approve this variance application. The staff's recommendation would be to approve the proposed project based on the included findings and conditions of approval. And that concludes my presentation. The applicant is also here to be able to answer questions and make their presentation as well.
Thank you. Before we go to the applicant, do we have any questions of staff regarding this project?
Yeah, last meeting, I clarified some of the comments that were made in the minutes. Were those discussed with the client, with the applicant?
No, as I had mentioned at the last meeting, those were, we had already published the packet and we already had final plan sets at the time that those clarifications were made.
Thanks.
Staff, I don't know if we could briefly discuss the 50% shading requirement for the parking lot. I'd like to understand more about what that requirement is regarding a public facility rather than a commercial facility. That's where we usually see it enforced. Is it something that's required uniformly across the city? Do other fire stations typically meet this requirement?
I couldn't speak to whether definitively other fire stations meet this requirement. My guess is that anything that was developed, unless it was more recently developed, it did not meet the requirement. But I can't really say definitively. But yeah, this is a standard that's established for any surface parking across the city. So it applies to public facilities, it applies to commercial lots, it applies to multifamily residential where they have surface parking.
Can you summarize what the standard is briefly, just so we all understand?
The requirement is to have shading on parking spaces such that it would cover 50% of the surface parking lot. That's the
And do you
basic.
know what the purpose is behind that requirement, just generally speaking? Is it an environmental thing to reduce the heat island effect, or is it to help
It's
trees?
to improve, it's a method of improving tree canopy, and then it's to also reduce heat island effect. And yeah.
So sort of a sustainable design kind of thing then.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. That's the end of my questions on that.
I have
Okay,
I have a quick
ahead,
question, if you
sure.
don't mind. On that same front, when you guys are calculating the parking space, as this is sort of a unique situation with how much paving they need to get these fire trucks in and out, what is this? I mean, I don't necessarily need this exact number, but where are you guys counting? Is it just the parking stalls themselves, or is it the whole paving in the middle?
It's the whole paving middle, and that's
Okay.
why this is a very unique site.
Thank you. Understood.
Okay, then why don't we move on and see if the applicant has a presentation for us. Applicant? Chief Lindsay, great. You will have 10 minutes, please, and I think just stating your name will suffice.
Good morning, esteemed board members. We're happy to present to you a packet that responds to your comments based on our last discussion. We went back as a team, and I'm sorry, my name is Steve Lindsay, Lindsey. We went back as a team and we discussed those comments, and we looked from a perspective of the day in the life of a firefighter that's going to be working at Station 4. They get to work around anywhere between 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning to report to duty. They work a 48-hour shift. They trickle in and out at different times, depending on if they're getting relief from another station or if they're coming in from home. And so they're going to be parking their cars at different times. So the parking itself, the flow, we are confident that that's going to work for us. As far as having opportunities to engage with the community, we embrace that. And one of the things is making the window a little bit larger in the front, and also adding an additional window that faces the apparatus bay and the apron area. So if we're inside of the day room is what we call it, and we are preparing our breakfast in the morning and we see somebody that's outside in the apron, which is the front area of the fire station from that window now, we'll have opportunities to engage. Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m., that's our business hours. We'll be in the lobby side. We'll be engaging with the public on the lobby side. We'll be conducting company business, which includes inspections, going out and doing training and district familiarization. On the off hours, we're going to be in the day room side. That's our time to eat. That's our time to talk about the day and make our plans for the next day. But it's also our opportunity to engage with the public when they're walking by after hours. And so adding a door on the side of the station that's to the patio, it doesn't necessarily push the firefighters out on the battlefield eating, but it does allow them to open up that Dutch door and allow the community to see the firefighters if they're outside eating, engage. We've added some seating. We've added areas where they can walk around the whole station. So when we do station tours, fortunately, we're getting back to where, post-COVID, where we allow people back in the fire stations. And so there's an opportunity to walk around the entire station now. And firefighters really like engaging with the public. They love the community. And so having that opportunity to really open up the station, open up the side doors, open up our apparatus bay doors, which we really like doing when we are available to visit and also check out our apparatus. All of those components have been taken into account as we've designed this station. And with these updates, we're really proud to show you something that we think is going to work really good for the public and also for the firefighters. As far as the canopy goes in the tree area, we've tried our best to do what we can, but we also have to be able to park our apparatus behind the station to do our maintenance. On Saturday and Sundays, we do apparatus maintenance out there, which means that we have to tilt the cab up and check the engine, check the drivetrain, and go through the entire apparatus. Also, when we're loading hose, we tilt up the rear of the hose bed, which is approximately 4 feet on either side, and a firefighter will stand up there and load the hose. So you figure we need quite a bit of space overhead when we're parked out there on the rear apron is what we call it, but that's the back parking lot of the station. If you look at the plans, it also has drains there, and that's where we clean our apparatus on the weekends and maintain it. So that's kind of an operational area for us as well, but we're really proud to show you what we've come up with today, and I hope that you guys are satisfied with our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else from your design group?
Yes, hello, members of the board, and my name is Chris Ford, C-H-R-I-S, Ford, F-O-R-D, BRW Architects, 1620 Montgomery Street, San Francisco. Just to follow up on the time remaining here to offer a few more details, we've done a focus slideshow to integrate the design changes that Garrett's already introduced with some of our renderings, and then certainly to be available for questions. We're following the same format as the earlier motions. And at the end, it just had one slide that shows what Garrett's already talked about, which is adding as many trees as possible for shading of the parking spaces, but keeping the service bay uncovered, as Chief Lindsay talked about. Motion one was the material board, which we've developed and brought, and the slide up on the screen just calls out a little bit more specifics on the material and some clarification on exactly where that's put. One of the questions from before was the aluminum soffit, which is to look like wood, and then the wood fencing, which was Ipe. That's all now been matched up to be an aluminum system and all of the same tone and color. So we have the porcelana tile, and then the remainder of the wood elements are or wood looking elements are the soffit panel and the fence, all matching. Second was the consideration of the material. We have studied various materials for that central spot, as we talked about at the last meeting. Not sure where the public art is going to go, and we haven't changed the window location. We've very clear our research on the stucco. It's a smooth finish, not a marbly finish, and we have an example of the exact finish in the color board. So we want to keep that as stucco to be what we think is the best contrast between the darker elements of the glass on either side. And that's slide 2, Valerie. Fence. Yeah, there's the elevation. Motion 3, we've got a few different slides to show, just sort of building up on what Garrett introduced and what the chief talked about. The topic of interaction between the firefighters and the public first is the Dutch gate at the facing out onto Middlefield, and a sort of a meet and greet, a relaxing patio bench area surrounded by the trees. We wanted to take some of the stone off of the facade of the existing building and use those as stepping stones in that planted area. Again, that wouldn't necessarily be where the crew would eat their meals all the time, but if there's somebody that wants to say hello, it's certainly a great place to step out and meet with the public. Next slide is the, Chief Lindsay mentioned that window that now connects the day room and the apparatus bay. As you can see, the doors are open, the engine's pulled out. And if you're in the day room or you're preparing food in the kitchen or walking down the hallway, we put in that window so that you could see if there's activity out on the front apron or somebody at the front door. So that's the rendering on the left and that exact location in the plan on the right. Moving as fast as I can with the time allowed. Also greater openness, and there were some questions last time about the configuration of the front plaza. How do you get from the corner up onto the plaza? Where do you park the bikes? Are there benches? So we've clarified a lot of that. The best rendering for showing that was this aerial sort of high above the corner of Middlefield and East Meadow, looking down on the plaza, and the specifics about the materials at the very corner, the sloping sidewalk from the corner, and then the steps up from Middlefield to get up to the plaza. And clarification on where the flagpole is and where the bike parking goes. Those were the three primary elements of the connectivity for motion 3. Motion 4, as Garrett already pointed out, was clarification on the design concept, knowing that the exact signage design is going to be coming back to you for review, probably during the construction phase. And the department likes the idea of the big 4. That's new, but everything else is matching the design of the signage at Station 3. Because we're on the corner, we've got 2 opportunities for signage. So we've got it on the left side along Middlefield and right by the plaza at the front corner. Not exciting, but important is the clarification on the roof facade and the fascia, which we've offered there. And then a little bit more detail on the motion 6, which was to raise the ceiling of the exercise room, introduce the rain screen system along 2 of those walls, and put in the clear story. And we just finished another fire station recently that had that clear story. It's a balance between offering the firefighters enough hard wall to set up their exercise equipment, but also getting a lot of natural light in. And as we talked about, that door that opens to the back is also to allow them to go outside, bring equipment outside, or do some of their cross training out in that small paved area between the exercise and the parking. That concludes my time. The final was about the shading. I think Garrett answered the questions pretty well about getting as much shading on the parking spaces in the back while still leaving enough open space for the service yard, and coordinating with the utilities on putting trees under the high power lines. Valerie has control on the screen. We could back up to the slides, or we've got various renderings and views if we wanted to ask any more specifics. So I'm 39 seconds over the time. That's
Wonderful.
That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's leave this image on the screen. It's quite attractive. Do we have any questions of the applicant? Go ahead.
Yeah, how do you, you discussed, or it was discussed, the use of the front area there on Middlefield for potentially casual lunches or however.
Yeah.
How do you get there from inside to outside from the?
That's a great question. The gate, there's always been a gate there. The earlier version was the gate was perpendicular to Middlefield. Now we've moved the gate to be parallel to Middlefield. And as Chief mentioned, it's a Dutch door gate. So the upper panel will stay open so that people walking by can see if there's firefighters in the back patio, or you could fully open it and walk outside.
So access to it is from the door behind the dining table there.
Right, their patio, their dining patio, barbecue area, outdoor eating that's connected directly to their dining day kitchen area.
That's a sort of an extension of their eating area that the rear yard there?
Yes, sure. It's really, and they have that now at Station 4. They have a barbecue, they have a shade canopy. So yeah, the outdoor eating, as Chief mentioned, at the end of the day, there's time to, relax, decompress, but also talk about the day. But there is, you want to get outside. And if it's a nice day, they typically eat outside at night.
Could you tell me how high this exercise room is at the present time in the present plan?
Sure. Ceiling tops out at about 11 foot ceiling inside. The stucco band above it is a little higher than a standard parapet because we're also hiding the VRF compressors. All the mechanical equipment is hidden, and the battery backup for the microgrid is also up there. So it has a little bit of a tall look, but we think it's worth it because it's going to be hiding virtually every piece of mechanical equipment, leaving the rest of the roof totally simple and flat for the PV panels. So it's 11-foot ceiling in the exercise room.
So, excuse me, it's 11 foot for the exercise. So it's about the same as, the height of the structure on the other side and in the front of that building is 15 feet. Is that right? Right.
That's about right. Yeah.
Okay. And there's a hung ceiling in that room.
You mean the balance of the living quarters?
No, the exercise room.
Well, what we've done before when we have that volume with clear story is we would have like an exposed painted out underside of the deck, like the metal deck, have it more of a gym look, probably not a drop ceiling. I don't know if we've really, dug into those details.
Okay.
Any other questions? Go
A question for Chief Lindsay. How many firefighters are at the station at any given time? What's your average number, or what's your max number?
For this station design or currently?
For this station design, how many firefighters do you expect to be on duty at any given time?
So we expect at this station to have 5 firefighters total, 3 on a fire engine and 2 on an ambulance.
Perfect.
And then we're taking into account kind of the future needs of the community as we design this station. So that's why it is the way it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
And a question for the architect, the trash enclosures by the generator, is there any possibility that those could be shifted forward to get another tree behind them?
It possibly. It's then a trade-off between giving the firefighters that outdoor sort of CrossFit workout area and moving everything. What we're saying is moving those 2 built elements north.
Yeah, just scooch it. I'm sorry if there's any way to pull up sheet C-2. I'm just noticing that the trash enclosures are there. They do seem to have quite a bit of space though between the trash enclosures and the actual parking stalls themselves. But it also says something saying comm tower. So I don't know if there is the capacity right there. That's perfect. If you zoom on that bottom right corner a little bit. So if there's a possibility to shift those trash enclosures just a little bit towards that, then maybe we could even get another tree or 2 in there behind the trash enclosures. Just thinking if that's actually feasible or not. And I don't have the answer, so I'm asking you.
I think it's feasible.
Okay.
The generators, they have doors that open and service panels and things.
Yeah, the generator is probably where it is. And then the follow-up question to that would be, is there any issue with having a tree that close to a generator?
I think one thing just to keep in mind is that these trash enclosures are going to need movability space in front of them.
Yes,
right? For
exactly.
the actual bins to be moved around.
Sure.
So we'll have to study that a little bit further to actually see if that's feasible or not. I'm not sure that that's something that we can answer today, though.
No, that's fair enough.
I do want to note that the electric utility substation is on the other side of that fence, and we have to maintain 2 to 3 feet tree canopy airspace from that fence. So that whole side, we had to exclude from planting trees.
So that
If
answers
you-
it.
if you
And
could please
state and spell
state
your
and
name.
spell who you are.
Sorry, my name is Valerie Tam, VALERIE TAM, Public Works Engineering.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Ms. Tam.
Thank you, Ms. Tam. I think that answered that question pretty clearly. We'd also had a conversation about the stucco joint lines on the front white facade. Could you speak to that a little bit, please?
For example, they're very thin. They barely show up on the renderings. It's just a very light shadow line. It's crack control. It's not going to be accentuated or a big design feature. It's really to help organize the graphics, but also just a slight shadow line. A little bit like the division between the panels behind you.
Great.
Like that thin.
Okay. That answers my question there. Thank you very much.
Any other questions of the applicant? Okay, we will open this meeting now to public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to address us on this issue?
No, we have no public comment.
Okay, seeing and hearing no one, we'll close the meeting to public comment and bring it back to the board for our discussion. And maybe Board Member Hirsch, you'd care to go first?
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I think that you've done a really fine job with the landscaping and opening the site to the use of the building, and as sort of the chief described, I think it's very, it's very publicly oriented at this point, and I really think that we pushed for that early on, and so thank you for recognizing its importance here. And so I think that, it's going to be kind of exciting to see the firemen out there in front and the possibility. I do wish it were a little bit more open, to be honest. I feel that maybe still the corners of the it's a sort of a trade-off. The living room area, the openness of the corner. You have a very nice open corner on the other side with the conference room there and the access to the sort of the administrative head and so on. But the same, it seemed to me, could have been sort of become a standard of this building, of the way in which you turn a corner. And I sort of feel that that could have been done in the front, and it would have actually provided a little greater view of the activity of the apron, and what's happening out there, and watching the front of the building as another control. It does it close up, but it doesn't do the entire apron. So should activity be happening in the front of the building, it's a good idea to have that kind of visibility. And it's a good idea, I think, to see the activity of the room inside there. So I personally would have pushed for even more glass around the corner in the front. And or actually making that window that is in the front kind of in line with the interior circulation into a door that opened up into the front, because the access with a Dutch door kind of idea to the front is a little circuitous to get there. I think it's likely not really to be used. Even so, it will provide visual openness, but it really won't create a movement to the front of the site. So in terms of our earlier comments, opening up the building more, I really feel there's a little more that could be done to make it consistent with what you're doing on the opposite side of the building. But my biggest concern is the view from the back of the building, that there are two major streets here, two really, really major streets. And as you're coming down East Meadow, the view of the back of the building, which is an activity yard of some sort, going to be very busy, as you said. That's a very, very much a part of the view of the building. But we have a very nice renderings of the front and the landscaping and the way you'll see that. And that's very nice, as Chair Bolte described, that view is going to be really, really nice. The back is not going to be at all the same. And I'm unhappy with the way in which, let me say, the concept of this building is this major structure coming through and these two kind of functional spaces for the administration of the whole rest of, and the night and day kind of activity spaces is really kind of muddied. You know, the front corner with the graphics and the conference room and the openness and the low roof at low, it's at 15 feet. That's not so low. That's significantly high. Seems to me that that sets a standard for the two aspects of the building, the sloping roof and the lower 15-foot, which is not so low, related spaces around the building. And then it's lost in the back because that the exercise room and the mechanicals above really take away from the concept of this building significantly. I would like to have seen that whole 15-foot level extended all the way into the back. And then you wouldn't have the mix of materials as well. You have stucco above the siding. You know, those two don't match up nearly as well as they do on the side where the conference room is. So there's a mix up there that I think doesn't work, and it doesn't really work well when you're meeting the slope of the roof either. So all of a sudden there's a projection that sits above the lower line of the slope roof. I think it's conceivable to rethink how the mechanicals are above it and take them and move them somewhere else in the building. Perhaps the condensers or whatever are put in the area of the plaza. Maybe you could extend the fencing in some way and incorporate some of that mechanical on the ground and not have it in the roof line at all. And then you'd have a repeat of the same idea as you have on the other side of the building with the conference room. To me, this is the most important problem with this project right now. I hate to say that you have to redesign it, but it isn't the major piece of the project and could really be designed to incorporate that same sense of the two lower 15-foot high pieces extending around the entire building. Because the only thing that makes that higher is the fact that you have mechanicals above it. And there's always more ways to skin the cat, or however you describe that, you know, to make that really work. And I think that would make a significant difference in your view of the building from the back. Through the landscaping, through the activities of it, you know, all of those activities, by the way, that you firemen have are really exciting. You have these great big machines that you work on, you know, you have all of these things, you know, the whole process is incredible as far as I'm concerned. You know, I know that I was intrigued when I lived in Brooklyn to stop off at the front of a firehouse and see them working on how you take a person and put them in a stretcher, you know, in the process of moving them, who holds whom and what part of the body do you hold? It's just incredible, the whole study. So I don't have a problem with really any of the landscaping. It is what it is, and you've done the best you could on that and I think it's going to be quite successful. In terms of some of the other little details, I remember mentioning that I thought you could put some skylights in the roof and get some daylight into the corridor in the back. And that's such a simple idea that you could take care of that during the daylight, and get some natural light there. I thought the planning, I was wishing that the sort of the kitchen and the dining area switched, and you've got some very nice windows in the front of the building on the corner. And it just seems to be that that's a really nice dining area, whereas in terms of the kitchen, let me go back to the plan here, see if I can. In terms of the kitchen at the front of the building, it's a sort of a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I think actually it's okay the way it is. Yeah, I think I take that one back. I think it works okay. So to sum up, I have to be honest, I sort of feel like the front of the building may be a little taller than it needs to be. When you look at the rendering of the front, it's just going to be some sweeping line that goes up to, and the maximum height of it looks very tall to me. And I was concerned about it in the beginning, and I think I'm still somewhat concerned that it seems to be a bit high. If we had really had a kind of a model of it, it might have been a little bit better to see that. But I leave it up to my fellow board members to give their opinion about the height of the roof. The 15 feet seems like a standard normal height for all of the other things, what you need to do inside to run drop ceilings or materials in the inside, and the roof line. It seems okay, but the top of the big roof is really, really way over. It just, I don't know, we'll have to see, if there's other opinions about that. You see it pretty well on H1 here. And it's quite high. It's a question of what it really is going to feel like when you're standing there. So I almost feel like saying, if you had a section drawing with a person standing there, you get a better sense of the height of it in the front. But there's no picture there. But that perspective rendering seems to emphasize that significantly. Okay, those are my major concerns. I want to emphasize again that consider the back and elevation that you're going to see, and work on the exercise room, make sure that coordinates with all the rest of the forms. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Hirsch. Board Member Chen.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I have to say I'm a big fan of this project since study session, and I really like the design, the cleanness, and the simple design. And I think the building itself is really attractive, and I do appreciate you provide greater openness at the day room, and also created the plaza outside the kitchen area to interactive with the public. Those improvements are really appreciated. I'd like to echo Board Member Hirsch's comment about the elevation design at the exercise room. I think right now it seems like the parapet wall is kind of tall. I know it's you want to hide the mechanical equipment above the roof, but since we introduced new materials there, I think the stucco wall above it and wood-looking tile below it just kind of compete with each other. So I would still consider recommend you to consider relocate the mechanical room above the bedroom area, because those area really doesn't need that high ceiling space. And then in this case, maybe we can lower the parapet wall above the exercise room and make the rear elevation, that part is more proportionally right. And comment on the backyard, the courtyard. I'm not sure whether it is necessary to open the courtyard as what Board Member Hirsch just mentioned, because I drove down East Meadow every day after picking up my daughter from school. And I know there is a deep buffer zone between the courtyard and the road itself. So it's really hard for you to see behind the trees what will happen there. So I'm not sure if it's necessary to or how to open it. That's all my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Chen. Board Member Rosenberg.
Thank you. I was the sole supporter of this project the last time it came before us, and I have to say I still support the project. I'm pleased with the improvements, though, and this is definitely one of those times where I appreciate that my board members pushed for further improvements to the design, because I do think they are successful. I hear what my other fellow board members are saying about the high parapet wall. There's the potential that maybe that does get moved. I wouldn't say over the bedrooms, but maybe over the restrooms. Personally, I don't think it's enough to require a change. I think that it's nice the way it is. Could I see room for improvement? Yes. But I also think that that's up to the architect to design, and that they have presented this design, and our job is tasked to see if there are major issues with this design. And at this point, I do not see those. I really like the improvements to the exercise room, although I do hear what Board Member Hirsch is saying about it's a little bit discontinuous with, there's a language on the left side, and this is a sort of a mixed language on the right side, but it is a dramatic improvement over the all white. So I'm in support of that. The new windows on the day room and Middlefield side, I appreciate those. I like the day room window out to the apparatus area. I think that's going to be really useful, and that you have easy access to get around and out. The height, I just wanted to speak to David's comment on the central main height. And there was a lot of discussion on this project, whether it should be a civic building or residential building. And there was a lot of back and forth on this. I appreciate the height that it is. I think that it's really sort of hitting this sweet spot between being tall and interesting and really having a presence, but not overtaking the primarily Eichler neighborhood that it sits in. So personally, I think that it's very responsive to the neighborhood that it's in, and I do appreciate that height on that front portion. I appreciate the grout lines. Those are looking good. I saw those in the elevation. The courtyard, just to address that, my 2 cents on it, I don't think it's going to be a public courtyard, but I do think it's going to be great for when families come to visit, that you're going to have your spouses or kids, they're going to want to stop by and say hi. They can run into that little area pretty easily. Do I think the public is going to roll into that Dutch gate? I don't think so, but who knows? We'll see how that goes. But I think it's going to be great for the families to come visit. And then my last comment is very small, but it's that the NO on the number, so it says fire station NO number 4, that NO just looks a little big. I feel like that it's a very small comment, but because the fire station and the NO are the same size, it's sort of competing. And I think just a little bit of a tweak to the size of that NO will improve that signage. And that is my final comment. Thank you very much for your time and presentation.
Thank you very much, Board Member Rosenberg. So I'm sorry, I can't help but to comment that the size of the exercise room is well within the architect's jurisdiction, and we shouldn't comment. And yet the size of the letter NO is very much something we need to worry about. Very well.
No, my comment was that I think that they're appropriate.
I think so too. Hats off to the architect. I think you've done a bang up job getting this building to fit into the community and have a civic presence. This corner elevation here really does wonders for me. It's going to be a wonderful building. I think you really nailed just tall enough to get some presence, just low enough to fit into the community. I really appreciate what you guys have done. My comment is exclusively on the exercise room piece. I think Board Member Hirsch is correct that this building will be seen from East Meadow Drive, and that is a weak element on the building. I'm comfortable, very comfortable recommending conditional approval of this with the exercise room coming back to an ad hoc committee for one more pass at possibly changing the roof parapet, roof eave. I think Board Member Hirsch summarized what the issue is, and I think improvements could be made, but I'd like to see this get pushed forward. So my recommendation to my colleagues is that we approve it with that element coming back for a subcommittee review. Any other comments on this? So then I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of this project as presented with the condition that the exercise room element be redesigned subject to the comments Board Member Hirsch made and not be reviewed by a subcommittee.
I second that.
Any discussion, staff, any comments on this?
For the motion, do you think we can reference the comments Hirsch made? Can we be more specific about what you'd like to see come back to the ad hoc committee?
Well, I think the exercise room needs to have a character that's more consistent with the rest of the building, which means having a roof eave of some kind and not being so tall. Likely the mechanical equipment needs to then be relocated. What else, David, was there in?
Sorry, I would just say that if you look at this front page elevation, it includes really two materials and a glass panel in between, glass dividing the roof line and the rain screen, and that should be the material on the outside of that should repeat on the exercise room.
The rain screen material should repeat?
Yes.
Okay.
It does in part, but it's mixed with a stucco as well as rain screen. And other than that, you know, I could see that as the limitation, and moving the mechanicals, which requires a little coordination, but I think can be done. Should be part of.
So we were making a couple of bullet points. I commented that it was the roof treatment. There really needs to be an eave of some kind that's a
Yes,
little
the
bit lower.
eave should be the same. Yes,
I think
correct.
that it's likely the mechanical equipment needs to be relocated in order to make that feasible.
Yes.
And then I didn't fully understand your comment about the materials.
Well, I'm saying the rain screen and the roof line and the windows should look like the
rest of the building.
Yes.
Okay, so it should be more consistent with the appearance of the rest of the building. Are those 3 bullet points sufficient, Claire?
Sorry, I'm gonna try and
We're going to try to put it up on the screen so
Yeah.
that we can all look at it at the same time.
so that we can make some revisions. I need to open up the panelist link.
Bring them up and ask. See if we get a motion out there first. Good looking building.
We lost the tree that's at the corner.
Yes, but
It's gone.
They're planting a new one. They're planting a new one there.
So
They're planting a new one
a
there.
new one there. Okay, so it'll be smaller.
That's existing.
Yeah, I gotta make it bigger probably. I think there was also a material, so I'm just trying to kind of refine this language. If you guys can help me refine this.
Let's leave it like this, Claire. You say, provide a character that is more consistent with the rest of the building. Let's put 3 bullet points under that help us get to that point. One of them is provided a more consistent roof eave treatment. The second one is to consider relocating mechanical equipment to not, so you don't have a big parapet wall. To allow the removal of the parapet wall. And the third is to have a consistent exterior material treatment with the rest of the building, the rain screen.
Is that what you said? Consistent material treatment with?
Consistent exterior finish material treatment. I don't think you need to say rain screen. That's given in that.
And would that just be at that same area?
Just on the exercise building, yeah.
The heightened white stucco area? That's what you're talking about?
Yeah. It's essentially having the white stucco above the rain screen is different than anywhere else on the building. The rest of it has an eave that caps it off. And that's what we're noticing. It looks different. It sort of reinforces it looking like a box rather than a glass wall with a roof on it. I think the architect is comfortably able to deal with that. We'll ask them in a second, but let's see if we get a second for this motion first.
I already seconded and I still second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Before we vote, can we ask the applicant what their reaction is to this request?
Yes, Chris Ford again, BRW Architects. To be quite honest, we've been chasing this mechanical system around since the very beginning. You know, as you know, it's a very tight site. We share the site with the substation, but that fence is fixed, service yard's fixed. Concerned about the chief coming and hitting me in the back of the head, the last spot left is their dining area, their outdoor dining area. Putting the condensers, the VRF condensers above a bedroom is not good for wellness and happiness of the firefighters. The other option, when like I said, we've chased this all over, was putting them above the bathrooms, but then you will see them from Middlefield. So we're not going to design it here. We'll try. I like the idea that it's subcommittee, that we can maybe meet face to face and do a charrette or something and really bring the model back and really study this. So we take it to heart. We'll do that.
To my colleagues and perhaps to you too, I would suggest that just even if the mechanical equipment has to be in the same location, put it there and put a separate screen around that pulled back from the edge of the roof.
Right. That's another thing we could study.
An easier way to, so we'll see it a little bit, but certainly you'd keep the form of the
building. To step it back. Certainly, yes.
I don't know if my colleagues want to comment if that would be
I want to comment. You know, I don't see how you could possibly see it if it's put above the bathrooms. The bathrooms are very far back in the building. The mechanicals could easily, they're going to be screened by the rest of the building from, I think that's a reasonable idea. And it's something that my mind went through as a reasonable alternate over the bathrooms, which certainly don't have to be 15 feet high. I suggest you consider that carefully. You will not see it from Middlefield unless you're riding in a bus where you're way up higher, you know, or on top of a truck, or even in in a fire truck where you're way off the ground. But definitely, it's a very reasonable place for something like that. Against the side wall of the building and not near the bedrooms.
Thank you, Board Member Hirsch. Any other comments from the board on this? Okay, so we're ready to have a vote then. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Board Member Chen,
Yes.
Board Member Hirsch,
Yes,
Vice Chair Rosenberg,
Yes.
Chair Balte,
Yes.
motion carries 4-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to our last item today, which, oh, of course, I want to assign the ad hoc to that one. And I'd like to assign Board Member Hirsch. And then maybe Board Member Chen, would you serve on this one as well, please?
Sure.
Okay, so Board Members Hirsch and Chen will be our ad hoc committee on this item. Thank you for reminding me. Our last item is board member questions, comments, announcements. I would like to announce that the City Council appointed Massam Adcock. Is that the right pronunciation?
I think it's Musam
Misam, okay.
Adcock.
A local architect to our board. She will be joining us at our next meeting. We will all welcome her at the time. Any other board member questions, comments, announcements? Great, thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you.